Welcome to the InPowered Life podcast,
a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Aniston, and this is InPowered Life. Welcome to the InPowered Life podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins, and I am excited to introduce our next guest to each and every single one of you today. You know, we love on the InPowered Life podcast to bring people information that is going to support them and empower them to live their highest and their greatest potential. And we have a guest today that has taken what has been his life, his journey, and turned it into what has become his greatest purpose, and that is to create the biggest impact out and in the world. And before we hit record, I said, how can I best support you in this podcast episode today? And he was like, man, let's just have like the greatest podcast episode that we've ever had. And let's do that for this crowd right here today. And so I know you're going to be in for a treat. I'm really excited to introduce you to him. Dr. Robb Kelly is an incredible man who has had an unbelievable life experience, as I mentioned. And he's going to be able to share how he took what was his experience and turned it into his purpose of how he creates shifts and changes in people's lives today. He's a mindset and performance coach. He also works with people who have struggled with addiction and so offers addiction coaching. He's created courses that actually play inside of addiction clinics as well as in jails. And I mean, to me, that just speaks straight to my heart for somebody who is not just looking to create the impact with somebody in their company where it's going to drive them the greatest level of growth. He's looking at creating growth and change for anyone and everywhere and leaving no stone unturned. He's also the incredible author of Daddy, Please Stop Drinking. And so from the title, we can tell he's had a full and robust life experience. But if he hadn't, he wouldn't be able to be doing the profound work he's doing out in the world today. So Robb, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the Empowered Life podcast. I'm happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Rudi. It's great. It's a pleasure to be here. Hey, guys at home. Great to see you. And hang around, guys. This is going to be good.
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to this episode. So we always like to start by having you tell us a little bit about who you are and what has been your life journey. I've alluded to it a couple of times. You know, you have had addiction in your past, and yet today you now beautifully support people. And I want to be very clear. You don't only support people in addiction. You help people grow and expand their companies and to start startups and to be the highest and greatest person they can be. But there is a foundation built in addiction, which was your life story. So why don't you start and tell us a little bit about who you are and how did you really get to being who you are today?
Well, guys, first of all, I come from Manchester, England, just in case you think I'm from East Texas. So I was born in Manchester, England, grew up there in a lower working class family. So we lived on what we call the council estates, and you probably call the projects. Not a lot of money around. Dad was dug roads for the gas board to lay them big pipes down, and Mum cleaned other people's houses. So yeah, I took my first drink at 9 on stage with my musical family playing bass guitar. And for the moment I took that first drink, my whole life seemed to change. It's something I could rely on. Went through school, no problems. Not the smartest kid in the world, but music, unbelievable. I walked around with a guitar around my head, apparently, my mom tells me, even to the restroom or sometimes in the bath. I used to take it. So crazy. So I knew I wanted to do something with music. And so I did. You know, I played in bands. I was a session musician at Strawberry Studios, owned by 10cc, just outside Manchester. And finally, Abbey Road. So I did sessions with Elton John, David Bowie, Queen, all them guys. But I was suffering from alcoholism at the time, but I didn't know. So all this stuff got me through college, went to college, got through a back door, through a friend of a Freemason, and studied well, come out with a PhD in psychology. Still think I was doing pretty good, though I was drinking every day by now. Got married. I thought that would solve my drinking problem. Though I didn't think I had a problem. I just thought, you know, hey, I like a drink. So, ruined family, wife left, kids, ages 1 and 3 taken off me by authorities, and finally became homeless in Manchester, England, probably at the age of around 26, 27. We got a nice house, got cars, we got business. It just threw everything away, abandoned my children. And, I remember that first night on the streets, Rudi, and I mean fully on the streets, not surf couch, fully sleeping under benches and in broken down, abandoned buildings. I remember the first night thinking, where did that all go wrong? But the crazy thing is, still didn't think I had a drink problem.
I hear you share your story, and I've heard your story before, and it still hits on another layer each time. For somebody who wanted to be a musician and was musically inclined, and then to eventually be playing with some of the greatest musicians, arguably, in history, and you feel like you've made it, you've achieved a certain level of status or stature or fame, and life is serving you, and then to be humbled and living on the streets, and then still not to be able to turn around and be able to identify where the problem's coming from. I would love to know, what was the moment, if that wasn't the moment, that really served you in realizing, wow, I've achieved so much and now I've lost everything because of my behavior. If that didn't teach it to you, what was the moment that did?
Well, we have to remember that we've probably studied more about alcoholism and addiction than any other doctor in the world, because there's not a lot of money in getting people well. We just have to look at the pharmaceutical companies and the treatment centers. So I just knew there was something more to what I was going through, because the doctor kept saying, I think you're an alcoholic, go to AA, and there was no other answers. And I went to AA, and these guys were staying sober, but I wasn't staying sober. I got like 3 or 4 months at one time, but all was devastating. So I'm on the streets not knowing what I'm suffering from, which is horrendous. I mean, if you don't know what you're suffering from, you think it's you. Like, I'm different from anybody else in the world because I can't stop drinking. I stabbed my wife 3 times one night because she won't let me finish my bottle of vodka. I couldn't stop drinking, and people didn't have an answer. So, defining moment, after 14 months on the street, 7 attempted suicides, 2 worked, I was dead, and they brought me back to life on a Manchester smelly, rainy, dark road, both times. I was walking down the back end of Manchester, which is factories and offices, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, so there's no people there. And I dropped down to my hands and knees. Now, I'd been molested by my priest. God was nothing to do with me. He abandoned me. I hated everybody and everything. But I dropped down to my hands and knees, and I was crying like a baby from the stomach. And I remember it as if it was yesterday. I'm on all fours in the middle of this cobbled road, pouring down with rain, freezing cold. I'm sobbing. The rain's hitting the back of my neck, and it's mixing with my tears, and it's hitting the cobblestones, very vivid, and turning to purple as it splashed on the road. I wasn't crying because I'd lost my wife, my children, my job, my stature in life of being a great citizen. The reason why I was crying is that it was then, and I realized I couldn't stop drinking. I remember looking up to the sky and saying this: if there is a God up there, I can't do this my own anymore. And somebody walked around the corner 30 seconds later. He'd missed his last bus home from Bible study. He took a shortcut that he's not supposed to take, and he came across me. That's when my journey started, right there and then. But and I wanted to find out more, because there was a defining moment for me when I was homeless. Is I had some money. I'm waiting out this newspaper store, liquor store, not supposed to serve alcohol till 10, and I'm there 5:30 in the morning. If you can picture this, I'm in a vest, string vest, a pair of shorts, and flip flops. It's snowing, and I'm sweating profusely. So I'm going through what we call the DTs. If I don't get alcohol or hospital in the next 30, 40 minutes, there's a good chance of me dying. The guy opens the door. God bless that guy. He knew that I was suffering from. He opened the door, closed it quickly like he did every morning. I couldn't even speak. I was shaking, and my head was banging, and I was in a bad state. I put my £10 on the counter, and he put a bottle of vodka, held it like this, he put it on the counter. And this was my reaction. And this is where psychologically it changed, even though I didn't get sober then. Headaches went, sweats missed, great mood. All of a sudden, I'm holding the bottle. And I remember looking at the bottle and looking at the guy and looking at the bottle again. And I went, oh my God, it's not the alcohol. And that's what that profound moment was. Alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism, and the same with drugs. It's got hardly nothing to do with the disease. So from there, when I did finally get off the streets, I wanted to study more about the brain, that they now call neuroscience, but I knew there was something different going on with real alcoholics, not heavy drinkers or abusing. Alcoholics are born, drug addicts are made. So I knew there was something different in the brain that was acting up or different to any other part. And we found 3 parts of the brain in alcoholics that differ from any other addiction or human being. So then we got into the neuroscience and we studied and studied and studied. We tried and tested everything. I came up against them, thoughts and maybe, and we're here today with the knowledge that we have, with the experience. See, I always thought that experience, Rudi, was torment. It was horrible. It's the worst time in my life. But, looking back today, I realized that was like a semester at Harvard University, what I went through, because that became my greatest asset going forward. So 5% education today, 95%, a guy called John who educated me, and experience. And I honestly think, but then what we found over the years was we used to do 95% alcohol, drugs, 5%, just trauma and getting through life and, getting people in a place they want to go. Today it's 95% that and 5% alcohol. Because what we found out about the brain is, first of all, the mind runs the brain. Mind over matter is the saying, but we can program our mind every single morning when we get up to retrain the brain to make sure we're successful. And I know that sounds mind-blowing to some of you guys at home, and it sounds simple. It really is. If you know what you're doing and the different parts of the brain and how to, start off with the 3 things every morning to make sure that the brain's getting oxygen and you're feeling good and you're changing your pathways. And what we find today is, unless you have a severe brain damage, everybody in the world can be successful. Whatever that success looks like for you, best father, getting your kids back millions of dollars. I thought it was $1,000,000 and I realized that when I got rich and wealthy that I was still sad. So it's 100%. We have a 97% success rate, unheard of in the industry. And we're the only company in the world that will offer you a money back guarantee. So if you relapse or fail in life whilst following our program, we refund your money.
I want to touch on something before we get into the work that you're doing and the incredible impacts that you're making out in the world. And that is the way that I started the episode. And I did it very intentionally. And I actually repeated myself twice, 2 different ways, because I believe people need information to be layered so that they hear the message behind the message. And that is that on the InPowered Life podcast, we talk about every single moment is serving who you get to become. And that you likened your experience to a Harvard degree. And, that is really the experience of going and learning something. And that through learning that experience, you get to turn around and do something with that experience. And that only in having had the experience are you qualified to be who you need to become. We like to talk about that a lot because there's so many people that listen to the show that are wanting to have or to be or to do something that's over there. And they're wanting to not be where they are right now. And we want to remind people that where you are is such a powerful place because it's qualifying you for who you get to become. And so when we get to meet incredible people like yourself, who's had such a colorful life experience and has had so many different varying traumas and circumstances and highs and lows, and then to be able to have a 97% success rate in supporting people, you wouldn't be qualified to do that if you didn't have all of those moments before that you couldn't relate and tie into and qualify you to be who you are. And so, it isn't so much about what you know, but it's almost like how you learned it and then, what you want to gain having done it. So I would love to ask you, you made a statement and I'm curious if you could unpack that a little more. I am the only one who can't do this. I am the only one. I am different. And you use that in your story or example. How many people do you come across today in the line of work that you do where you find everybody feels like they're different? Or do you feel that it's only a few people that will come to you and say, I'm different than everybody else?
Almost everybody. Because there's a certain part of life where they come across and they can't grow anymore, or there's certain situations, or divorces, or addiction, or cake, food, sex, whatever it is. But we think because we keep these problems to ourselves, one of the big questions I ask somebody, strangers usually, is what are you going through that nobody knows about? And people have always got something. So when they come because of the isolation of the problem or lack of success or starting a career because you've been fired from a previous job, we think we're the only ones going through this because we're embarrassed to tell anybody. So what are we going through? Well, unfortunately, guys, childhood trauma is the gateway drug. So everything we do today is related to childhood trauma. And I'm not talking about the childhood trauma that therapists talk about, like the car crash or mom and dad divorced or you got bullied. It goes way, way deeper than that. Once we get back to that, where my experience comes in is I've been through everything you can even imagine. I know that God's taken me through everything so that when people look at me now, they see my TV, they see the books and all that. I don't buy into all that. I've never watched me on TV. I won't listen to these podcasts because I just don't. I don't listen to anything or watch anything because I want to be humble and keep my feet in the ground or in the trenches, because if I start watching all this online, I might start believing the hype, and I can't believe the hype. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to take you from A to Z as quick as I possibly can. So you get these people that come up and say, yeah, but Dr. Robb, you don't know because I've suffered this. And I go, hey, yeah, so have I. And people go, yeah, but you don't know. You've never lost your kids. Let me sit down and talk to you about that. You've never been homeless. Let me sit down and talk to you about that. It's like every scenario that I've been through, you have to relate. And I'm big on, God bless you guys and thank you for your work. But if you've just gone to college for addiction and not suffered it, you can't help me. I'm sorry, but you can't. Because what you don't understand is when I want to drink, I will literally stab you to death if the bottle's behind you like this and you're not giving it to me. That's not normal thinking. Well, of course it's not. I'm insane with what I'm going through. Hypothalamus changes completely with alcoholics. Instead of telling us to drink water, eat food, it tells us to drink alcohol only. That's where we go weeks or months. Then the basal ganglia is distorted because of the childhood trauma. And we found these with a lot of, people who want to really be a success, and they get to a point and they self-sabotage for what seems no reason. Because there is no reason. And until you repair all them, and the amygdala, which is our smoke alarm, stores the trauma. Unless we clear that up. And here's the big one, Rudy. And find your identity. Because we're all born with $1 million minds, man. But what we do is we start hanging around with 10-cent minds. And then we start to believe that. It's like fear isn't real. Babies are born with two fears. Fear of falling, the fear of loud noises. Everything else is man-made. Wait till your father gets home. Oh my God, you've just been fired. You're useless. You can't support the family. It's all man-made. But we believe that when we're told it often enough. So when people come, it's a case of, yeah, you've never had a case like this because I'm the only one going through this. And I have to inform them that, first of all, chill out. You're not. There's been 8,000 patients in this company before you. And they've all succeeded, so you will. So don't buy into it too much of the failure. But people do.
So I asked that question very intentionally again, because so many people come into my line of work and say, I am different and no one's experienced what I've experienced. And I love it when we normalize that we all feel that way, and we don't all feel that way about the same thing. We haven't all had the same experiences, but what we do have in common for sure is the 2 points of reference that you've given us, is that we're all more common than we think we are. And the second is that we're all born with this $1 million mind. And so I would love to know, what do you think is something that somebody that's listening to this episode right now and they've identified that they feel like they're different, that they aren't the same, that nobody can relate or understand? What would be your advice to serve or support them right now?
Well, first of all, guys, you're a genius. End of story. Okay, I want to put that over straight away. You're using the mind, your thought patterns are different to anyone else's. It's like everybody's born, and again, I'm 62 years old with 40 years experience in this industry, or 30 years, I can't remember. A couple of things you must remember. You have a niche in life. You're put on this earth to lead. I don't care who you are, sat in a one-bedroom apartment with no furniture because your wife's left you. Don't care. You're born to lead. This is experience you're going through and training, okay? If you are different, so's the guy running Apple and Google and all them great things. But you have to believe. Don't listen to the hype. Oh, who do you think you are? You're different for a reason. So don't build a business, build an empire. For a business, you need a website and a business card, and that's you, a businessman. We build empires. And if you think you are different, first of all, if it's a suffering, you're not. But if it is intelligence or a drive like me, not just necessarily intelligence, you have to follow that dream, because dreams come true 100% of the time. I'm going to give you some tips later on towards the end of the program of what you can do to change your life tomorrow morning. But we have to believe, don't settle. People want to put the blocks on imaginations. So we did an experiment, and I think it's been done before. We got 1,000 fleas and we stuck them in a huge mason jar. Okay. So what happened is fleas can jump 2 or 3 feet. We put a cap on top, screwed it on, put holes in the top, and we left them for 3 days. When we took the cap off, not one flea jumped higher than where the cap was. Okay. Which is interesting. But what was more interesting is the babies they had in that jar, they won't jump higher. So now we go to learn behavior with human beings. Somebody, somewhere in your past has told you that you're not good enough, you're different, but in a bad way, and you'll never amount to anything. That sits in the subconscious brain, conscious, subconscious brain. All the bad stuff sits there. And unless you do your trauma work, every time the prefrontal cortex wants an answer in milliseconds, it comes straight out the subconscious, which is bad, 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 bad all the time. Follow your dreams, hang around people like you. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't today. We've got everything at our fingertips. Hang around people that push you to the limit. Hang around people that clap when you win a trophy. It's very important to watch for the guys that are not clapping. And go forth and help people along the way, and you'll be a success.
So if somebody is listening to this right now and they're identifying that, they have a dream or an aspiration, and that, life may be okay. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but they want to do something more, and they want to build the empire. And they look at their close circle and they find people that are going to clap or people that are going to support them. That's really sound advice. But what would be one key step that they would need to create the shift in their mind, so that they're drawing from the best part of the brain so that they can make the best decisions? Because we all understand thoughts produce feelings, and thoughts and feelings drive human behavior. So what would be one tool, tip, trick, or hack that you could give somebody that, if they're in a slump, could immediately shift them from being in a slump to taking, committed action towards their dream?
I'm going to say one thing and one thing only: oxygen. So we only breathe 25% of our oxygen and lung capacity. The reason why we feel so good at the gym or running is not the exercise, it's this in between says. Okay? We only walk around 45% of our capability and capacity. And the reason why is we don't get oxygen. We don't get enough. So the presence of oxygen equals the lack of disease. Okay? So every disease we have known to man is grown in a hypoxic area of the body. So one thing you can do is start breathing 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the afternoon, 10 times in the evening. Once the oxygen gets in, the thought patterns will change and you'll become clearer. And start hanging around the people that you want to be. And let go of the people that you don't want to be. Because them guys will keep you down in that cesspit and will not let you go. If you start acting as if you're where you want to be, manager, mechanic, if you start acting today, because we don't have time, by the way, guys, everyone thinks we have time, you're never going to be ready, do it today, you will become. It's as simple as that. Start dialogue. Start thinking that you are the greatest thing in the world. I have no bones, Rudi, that I'm the best doctor pertaining to the mind, the recovery, and performance in the world. I have no problem saying that. It's on my business cards. And then once you start believing that, nobody can touch you. And everybody can do this. Pretend you're in a movie somewhere. Plan your life out. Hang around them people that inspire you. If you're on 50 grand a year, you want to earn 100 grand a year, hang around the guys that earn 100 grand a year. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. But do it today, guys. The oxygen, teeth work, and mirror work is what we talk about first thing in the morning. Changes people's lives. Change the patterns. Everything's about patterns. Change the pattern you're in. There's a great saying in AA, which is, if I do the same today as I did yesterday, I'll keep sober. What a load of crap. If you do the same today, then you're not moving anywhere. You're not going, you become stagnant. It's like, show gratitude, turn up every single time, believe in yourself, and move forward. You've got to be moving forward every single time. You've got to be moving forward every single time. Don't take no for an answer. I know I'm giving you a lot of reasons why, and you only wanted one, but I get excited about this stuff. It's like there's loads of things we can do to make this happen. And I've seen it millions of times with people. You need to come away from where you are right now and step out of that comfort zone, step out of that working for the factory and move forward and believe in what you can do, which is mind-blowing. Look at quantum physics. It backs us up here. You know, it backs the neuroscience up that you can change from today and move forward. You just need that belief.
You know, I'm going to go back to your analogy with the fleas in the jar. And for anyone who has never seen any of the data or watched any videos, because you can find them if you Google, you can take the fleas and put them in a jar and they'll jump up to the lid, and then you can remove the lid and they won't jump further than the lid. But you can also pour them out of the container and they will stay in the shape of the container and they will not leave. And what I love about this example is when you remove the lid, you're giving them the free ceiling to go as high as they want, but then they don't jump because they believe that's their limitation. And then when you remove the container, they don't stretch out and they're not expanding into what else is possible because they believe that they're confined to this one space. And yet for so many people, we hang around, as you had beautifully mentioned earlier, you know, the 10 cent minded person versus being the million minded person. And so, you know, people around you, they're keeping you in that confinement. They're keeping you in that space. They're keeping you where it's safe because, you know, misery loves company. And if it's not going well and we're all not doing well, well, then we feel okay. You know, in COVID, I talk about this a lot. You know, we would joke with our neighbors, and I did this too. But we would walk around and we'd be like, oh, it's noon. Oh, it's time to have a drink, you know, and you would normalize drinking in the middle of the day because it was COVID and nobody was working. And I started saying like, man, that's not normal. It's not normal to normalize something that's not normal. Yeah. And yet we saw it in increasing escalation. And my wife and I actually stopped drinking because of what we started to see. But what I want to follow up with you now is you've alluded a few times to the 3 key things that you need to be able to do in the morning. And I spend my life going in and supporting individuals and organizations to curate a morning routine so that they can be the most primed for success. I would love to know, because you've touched on 3 things. I want to hear it from your mouth. What are the 3 things that you teach or advocate that everybody does in the mornings to set themselves up so that they can be the most successful?
So the reason why no human being has ever woke up laughing is lack of oxygen. So in a normal circadian rhythm sleep pattern between the hours of about 2 and 5 is when the body's in most repair. So the oxygen is really low. It's also when most people die of natural causes. So when we get up in the morning, like I just said, you need to get that oxygen. Do 20 breaths. Hold on to the side. Exaggerated, by the way. Do that 20 times in the morning. Let's get that oxygen flooding in the brain and every other cell. Walk into the bathroom. If you brush your hand with your right hand, left for a week, right for a week. And let's start changing that pattern. Neural pathways will split off with different actions. The brain is used to this every single day. Once you do this, the neural pathways are built for this. Now you have 2 neural pathways for one single act. The other one is very important. Stand 6 feet away from the mirror. Look yourself in the eye and let's start stacking that subconscious brain. I love you 10 times. No other affirmations. And the reasons we stand 6 feet away from the mirror is because of the way our eyes work. When we get close to the mirror, we see all our blemishes. That's not how people see us, but we carry that image out there. Look at that spot, you know, and that subconsciously we go on less than. Stand 6 feet away, blemishes disappear. Because if you think about it, guys, you know, when's the last time you were in the office and go, hey guy, hey buddy, how you doing? Nobody does that. It's so far away that find the real you. It will give you extra confidence. Help 3 people or compliment 3 people a day. Your day will be amazing. It'll change from tomorrow. Believe me, the oxygen alone will change the brain and being so much alert and clear thinking. Once we're thinking clear, we can start making decisions based on what we want out of life. And as long as you keep giving back, then morning routines will work and change your life from tomorrow morning, guys. Try it.
That is incredible. You know, I'm going to add one in there for anybody that's listening. You know, when you wake up in the morning, if the very first thing that you do is make your bed, you're telling your brain that you start projects and you finish projects and that you're a doer and a finisher. And And that's going to carry in every single thing that you do for the rest of the day. What's so interesting is I've heard before about brushing your teeth with your left and your right hand. And I tried with my left hand a few times. It was clumsy and I never went back to it. But what my wife and I do a little different is when we're wanting to change our behavior, we're wanting to do something different, and we're wanting to make sure that when we wake up, we remember that we're going to do it the different way. We actually swap the sides of the bed that we sleep on. And so if I'm always on the right hand side, then I move everything over to the left. So when I wake up, I'm on a completely different side of the bed. I'm like, why am I here? And remember, and there I'm in that train of thought. And so it's about creating opportunities to retrain your brain that you're doing things that you're doing very differently.
Anything like that, guys. And we ask people to do 5 things every day, right? 5 things every day in the morning or the night before. Make the bed, go lunch, see Johnny, go to the gym, whatever it is, 5 things. You can do 1,000 things, but if you don't do them 5, you've taken a step back. And it's really important to remember that. Don't do this half measures if you want to change. There's loads of ways to change your mind, loads of way of redirecting. So if there's around 300 neural pathways that die every day in the head, in the brain. What are you replacing them 300 with? Is it old behavior? Because if you're acting out old behavior in a bad way, if you're acting that out today, guess what? It's not old behavior, it's current behavior. So if you want to change from yesterday, keep changing up. I used to go to down 281 to the office every day. I started going a different way, changing our pathways. The more we put in, the more we try to achieve, the more we can tick all them 5 things every day. Do our 3. You're changing your pathways so that the neural pathways around normal people's around 75% good, 25% bad. It's opposite with addicted people. So if 300 people are dying, what are you replacing it with? You need to start replacing with good stuff that you feel good at so you can pass it on. When you compliment somebody, dopamine's released into my brain and his brain. We feel good. And if you don't think this works, guys, I want you to try this. We tried this as an experiment. Next time you're in a built-up area of people, sneakers are always the best. Look for somebody walking toward you with nice sneakers. And as they go past you, 3 words. Nice sneakers, man. Nice sneakers, man. He'll say, oh, thanks, man. Watch him when turn around and watch him when he walks away. He'll look down at his sneakers at least 3 times. Now you've just changed his world. So when he goes home to the girlfriend or the wife, he's in a good mood. So she's in a good mood. It's called the mirroring part of the brain. Then the mother-in-law calls, and you get the gist. That's how we change lives. That's how we change the world. 1 person at a time, 1 hour at a time, doing good things that you feel covers and that you get excited about. I'm excited about this deal like I was 30 years ago. I'm so excited about this deal because I've seen so many people change, but we get complacent. We get complacent and we don't use dialogue with other people. So let me ask you a question, guys. There was a guy who said he's going to walk to the Golden Gate Bridge and he's going to throw himself off and kill himself. And so he did. So they fished the body out of the water and they went back to his apartment to see who he was and who they can contact. When they got back to the apartment, they found a note on the kitchen table and it read, I am going to go to the Golden Gate Bridge, throw myself off and commit suicide. Unless sometime on the way somebody smiles at me, nods or speaks to me. The question is, guys, how many people have you passed today who's on the way to the Golden Gate Bridge? How many people? You never know what people are going through. Everybody has trauma. Everybody's going through something. Just ask somebody one day in a quiet conversation where you're having a glass of wine or something outside, what are you going through that nobody else knows about? And you start to find that you can help no matter what your experience or background is.
I wrote that question down when you said in the very beginning to use that when we closed the episode, but obviously I think it serves itself right now just to mention that is such a simple tool, but yet it is so powerful because very rarely do we ask a question that is so deep or intimate of another person. I joke a lot that when I moved into my new neighborhood where I went to go play a round of golf with all the guys, and when I got home, my wife was like, what were the guys like? Did you enjoy playing out? I said, I don't know anything about them. And she's like, what do you mean? You were gone for like 5 hours. And I'm like, yeah, because they didn't talk about anything. It was great shots. What are you doing next? Are you having a beer? But there was no actual conversation. And so the next time I went to play golf with them, we were getting ready to tee off. And I'm like, how's your marriage? Are you happy? Do you want more kids? what are your dreams? Who do you want to be when you grow up? You know, they're like, I'm 45 years old. I'm like, yeah, who do you want to be when you grow up? And like having these conversations, I want to add, I've never been invited back since that golf outing because people are not always open and receptive to questions and wanting to be probed. But I think that every single person that's asked the question that you pose is ready to give the answer because they're dying to just release what is sitting on their hearts and on their chest. And so thank you so much for sharing that. I want to ask you, you have a 97% success rate in supporting people in achieving what it is that they want, whether that's overcoming addiction or with starting a business or achieving a goal or, you know, winning their family back. My question to you really is, what is it that you do different that supports people in having a 97% success rate?
Well, we're different to any other company out there, and this is why. Obviously, we're using the neuroscience behind what we do. But the repetition strength it confirms, that's a basal ganglia in the head. Most people, if you can imagine it, a clock, 10 after doing good, 20 they have kids, and 10 till they'll self-sabotage because of the childhood trauma. So what we do is we don't concentrate on what they think is the problem, the alcohol, drugs, sex, you know, lack of, you know, not good enough, never be tall enough, blonde enough, rich enough, or thin enough, and concentrate on what's actually going on, which is the childhood trauma. So it's a daily, 1 hour a day telehealth program for 90 days, and then you step down, no days off. You see, what happens with it, let's say we go driving a car. So I learned to drive a car. It's really hard at first, and you know, I drive it every day and I'm getting better at it and I go and pass my test. And now before I know what day it is, I'm reversing down the driveway, waving to my wife, listening to music and trying to text at the same time because it becomes a working part of the brain. That's the basal ganglia. So a pilot needs 10,000 hours in the air before he can fly commercial, for instance. So the more things we do every single day to emphasize on that, we use tools like NLP, and neuro-linguistic programming, somatic experience, brain spotting, you know, all these great things. And we retrain the brain. So if I tell you to do something subliminally every day, then you're going to start doing it without you know you are doing it. So the biggest thing we hear from patients is, I didn't do anything. We sat on an hour every day for 90 days. What did you do? I don't know what you did. We didn't do it. That's the way to do it. So when they go into success, they've no idea how they got there, but they know they spent time with us. Because if I tell somebody who's struggling to do something directly, there's a 9 out of 10 chance of not doing it. So we have to subliminally start changing them neural pathways, changing the thought patterns, changing the amygdala with the trauma and finding out their identity, which we do again through all in tools I've just said, plus psychology, and my second PhD is behavioral science that I took about 10 years ago online. So all these are really interesting when you start working with people, because in the first assessment, you can't pay to come onto our program. It doesn't work like that. I'm the guy that turned Britney Spears down for $1 million. It doesn't work like that. We have to know ourselves and guarantee to your parents or your wife that we're going to get you to the place we want to get to. So we're very fussy who we take on, but the guys that are ready are ready. And repetition strengthens confirms all the time, day, doing things, setting tasks, texting in on time. You have 4 check-ins every single day. You have homework to do. You turn up every single day ready to go, and the work continues until you're in that pattern. Because everything's about patterns. And guys, if you've ever been, you know, young or even adults, gone to like the seaside with a bunch of guys, or at school with a bunch of kids, and you get off there and you play, and as adults we have a few beers. When you get back on the bus, which seat do you sit in? You sit in the seat, you travel there. So we see these patterns. There was a girl in England in the late 60s. She got snatched off the side of the road into a van and snatched. Massive manhunt. Nobody could find her. 16 years old schoolgirl, blonde hair, blue eyes. There was a massive press on this. And after about 2 or 3 months, they had to bring back manpower, and she was classed as either dead or just couldn't find. But 9 months later, this police officer is going down a country road, and in front of him is a car with broken lights at the back. So he pulls him off. Now, a trick they used to use back in the day is there's no radios or nothing. So they would say, hey, what's in the trunk? You got a pair of boots and a yellow jacket. Open the trunk. There you go. It's obviously your car. Where you go. But they asked this guy pulled over, and he was hesitant. When they opened the trunk, there was a stolen screwdriver. So now they're allowed to go back to their house and see what else is stolen. And sure enough, there were lawnmowers, there were drills. And while searching, one of the police officers looked in the corner. There was a box, a wooden box, probably 4 foot high by 12 foot wide, for instance. And they said, hey, we know you've got more stolen stuff in there. So they smashed the lock off this box and they opened it, and there was the girl that went missing 9 months before. She was bruised, she was battered, but she was alive. We used to take her out every day, abuse her, restroom, food, and back in the box for 9 months, Rudy. The police officer, the woman police officer, leant over, took her hand and helped the girl step out of the box. She took her police coat off and she wrapped it around the girl. What's the first thing she did? She got back in the box. And that's what we do with life. We settle for that box, no matter how painful it is. We stay in relationships way too long. We stay in jobs way too long, and we get comfortable with that pain. You need to smash that box up. You need to completely smash all that trauma pertaining to that box to start a new life. Otherwise, you'll stay in that comfort zone. You'll stay in that place from learned behavior and measurement that your caregivers told you that you would be growing up. Don't be stupid, Robert. You can't be a footballer. How stupid is that? We had dreams like that, Rudy, when we were kids. What do you want to be, Billy? Oh, I want to be an astronaut. What about you, Jim? I want to be a footballer. What happened to them dreams? I'll tell you. They were kicked out of us by our family and friends. My dad did this, so I did this. My dad lives on the project, so I'll live on the project. You've got to break that, man. You've got to break that relationship with parents. And nobody's fault here. Parents are not to blame, or caregivers, but it's all tied back to that. You need to realize who the hell you are as a person. And when you find out that, follow the morning routine. Rudy and I just talked about, move forward in life, see the opportunities with the oxygen and everything in the morning. You'll see opportunities that, oh, wow, maybe I'm being taken down here. When we have some kind of spiritual connection, God, Uncle Jimmy, spirit of the universe, from the mind, and we change the neural pathways in the head, our DNA changes, which means you're not the same person as you was when you walked in, then you walk out. Simple. But we get complacent.
You are speaking my love language, and so beautifully said. So let me ask you, I love to bring back the value and the meaning in every experience that we're having. And we've done that a number of times through yours today, because you're clearly very good at what you do. You understand how to be able to create a shift and a change. But at one point in time, you didn't know how to do it. You were debilitated. You were making the wrong choices. You were over consuming to try and fill the void that was within you. And now you're using all of that to be able to create the shift. And I'd love to know, if you were looking at your life right now, what do you think was like the greatest gift that you got, or the greatest surprise that, in looking in hindsight in your life, that, you know, having gone through what you've gone through, what was the greatest gift that you got from it?
The greatest gift was Derek finding me on the streets, and just preempting before I tell you, took me back to his house. He took me to a meeting, and I met a guy called John. John taught me a lot of things. And the story behind that, was, this guy in AA spoke very well. He spoke about these miracles and stuff. So I went over and asked him to sponsor me, and he said, no, but I'll be your spiritual advisor for 12 weeks. He told me to walk around to his house every Wednesday, which I did. I couldn't afford any car or anything. I was living in Derek's basement. I set off at 6 o'clock, got there for 7, stayed till 8, left at 9. Now, he had me wait downstairs at 2 minutes to 7. He won't let me go until 7, which I thought was, okay, he's that kind of guy. What we went through was phenomenal. That was the biggest gift and biggest change. But when I left the man's house on the last Wednesday of the 12 weeks, he told me my life will change from tomorrow. And I said, Johnny, I'm living in Derek's basement, and I'll blow up mattress, you know. The very next day, Derek came home halfway through the day, and he said, hey, one of the guys at work has just give his notice in. He sweeps the floor. Do you want a part-time job? It later turned into a full-time job. And this is where it gets interesting. So my first paycheck I bought John a little teddy bear, and I wrote a little card with him, and I walked back to the man's house. When I got there, it didn't look the same apartment, but I knew it was the same apartment. It just looks a bit dusty. So I knocked on the door. I knocked on the door a few times, and the woman on the right hand opened the door, and she says, hey, can I help you? I said, yeah, is John still live here? And he said, John who? I said, John, the guy, your neighbor here. And she said, well, I've only been here 3 months, and there's been no one in that apartment for 3 months that I know of. So I let her close the door, and I went to the left hand, and I banged on this guy's door, and I'm a bit pissed off, to be honest. He comes to the door. What do you want? I said, where's John relocated to? He said, John who? I said, John, your neighbor, the guy that lives here. What is everyone talking about? And he went on to tell me that apartment was derelict, and you can't go in it for the last 12 months. And if you walk into it, you would fall down, to the bottom half of the apartment. I thought he was weird or drunk or high. So I went back to the meeting that I first met John. It's like 3 or 4 months ago. And I went in and the chair went, "Oh my God, Robert." I said, "Oh, you remember me? Thank God for that." He said, "Who can forget you?" And we're laughing. I said, "Did John still come here?" And he said, "John who?" I said, "John, the guy was over near the coffee machine speaking to him, the 12 da-da-da-da." And he said, "Rob, you're over near the coffee machine speaking to yourself. We've never found that man." And that was my greatest gift, because all he's taught me is what I use today.
That is an unbelievable story. Good Lord. I don't even know how you follow up any other questions with that, because, I always think that we're getting exactly what it is that we need. And sometimes that is walking through a bridge and getting a smile along the way. And sometimes it's the person that's offering the smile. And in this instance, it's having a conversation with yourself that's supporting you to become who you need to be. Beautiful story, and thank you so much for sharing that with us and with our audience. Could you just tell us a little bit of how anyone can find you? We're obviously going to drop your information in no notes, but how could somebody work with you or learn a little bit more about you if they were interested?
So if you're listening, guys, and not watching, I spell my name with 2 B's, ROBBKELOY.com is the website. Look at the RobbKellyFoundation.org. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to inspire you. So don't call us up and, think we're after work. We're good. Thank you. But one thing I would want to finish with, guys, is if you're sat at home right now in that place that Rudi and I talked about, where you're desperate, you don't think there's a way out, you're kind of contemplating suicide, but you haven't done it yet. You think you're never going to amount to anything. First of all, I want to apologize because somebody's put that there. And secondly, 214-600-0210 is my personal cell phone number. Send me a text, okay? Now, obviously busy. I'll text you back and we'll arrange a 15-minute phone call, and I will change your life with a 15-minute pep talk. If I don't, I'll send you $100 for wasting your time. And the reason why I say that, it's very important for me to keep one foot in the trenches from where I came from and I belong. I would rather spend 15 minutes with you than hear of your funeral next week, because we're in this together, guys. Don't look at the internet. Don't search me anything stupid like that, because you might get put off. But if you're that guy, if you're that girl sat at home listening to this, you would be doing the greatest favor to me if you text me and we could just talk, for 15, 20 minutes. Because if we don't do that, guys, what the hell are we doing? If we're not changing the world on a daily basis, what the hell are we doing? You might as well go drink and use and do whatever you want to do. So it's about changing lives, and that's my offer to change your life from tomorrow. So if you're sat there going, should I, shouldn't I? What you're forgetting is you're going to make my day. You're going to change my day tomorrow, because I'm going to call a number I've never called before. Neural pathways change. So you've actually saved my life and changed the world.
I think in any moment, there's always an equal exchange of energy. And I believe, and my audience has heard me say this thousands of times, the greatest levels of joy and fulfillment and freedom that you're ever going to get is when you give selflessly of yourself every day in every single way. And I love that you're able to put it in such a useful tool, and even be able to put a dollar value to that. And hey, give me a call, because I'm going to create an impact in your life. But in addition, I'm also going to, have the blessing of having you change my neurological pathways. And in addition to that, you're going to support me in living my dreams. And so thank you so much for showing us what it looks like. I want to just commend you in your journey. And so many people could have and would have given up and would have lived a very different life. But it's in the journey that you've gone through that you're able to be the teacher that you are today. And I hope that every single person that's listening to this, who maybe hasn't gone through such an incredible life journey, meaning you haven't stabbed someone for a bottle of vodka or wanted to, or you haven't lost everything, but you're just not fulfilled, you're not happy, you haven't achieved your highest and your greatest potential, that you look back at every experience that you've had and you ask yourself, what is the totality of all of those experiences? And if you were to teach them, who could you change? And if you could just give someone a smile, give them a nod, give them a hug, give them 15 minutes of your time, even if you don't know that person, if there's nothing that you think that they can give you, what if you create a way of being able to do that? Because when you understand that there's an equal exchange, you're giving, but you're also receiving. And that's the most beautiful gift that we can get. Rob, thank you for your time. I appreciate you, brother. Much love to you and to everybody else in the Empowered Life podcast. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks, Rudi.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.